Hello, thank you very much for tuning in. It's Stuart, the unrepentant atheist, again with another call. Went out on the 19th of November, 2023. Zen is calling in. Matt and Jimmy are in the chair. So Zen is calling in effectively to point out that according to certain studies, um, believing in Christianity or being a Christian or being a Christian leads to better outcomes. Now, Matt said that he'd seen some of these studies and, there are methodology flaws, but he could accept that there are benefits that there could well be better outcomes in believing in Christianity. And Jimmy said the problem from his point of view is that the Christian worldview couldn't really be properly defended because it can't be established to be true. Whereas his worldview of secular humanism, he could justify it only referring to the material world. He did not have to appeal to miracles or the supernatural. Yeah, so the caller is moving on to say that he recognizes that it's important to uh, justify claims referring only to what is known to be true, but that it may lead to better. You might not be so consistent in this position in certain circumstances, and you may have to deviate from it. And he's going to give an example of where, for example, Matt is not consistent, would not necessarily be consistent in what he is saying in terms of only referring to what is demonstrably true and only accepting what is demonstrably true. In other words, he may accept what is demonstrably false in order to arrive at a better outcome. So let's just listen to what he's going to say.
You don't have to make up anything, and that's fine. I'm willing to grant that for the sake of the argument. And to kind of address both of what you're saying is, like, I think Matt mentioned that we need to focus on what's true. We need to affirm what is true. We need to not go against, descriptively true things in reality. But I don't know that you'd be consistent on that. For example, if somebody said, like, held a weapon to your head and said, either affirm that 2 plus 2 equals 5 or I will unalive you, you're
Two
probably
plus
going to
two
just
equals
say, fine,
five.
2 plus 2 equals 5.
Of
Right.
course,
Yeah.
but that has nothing.
Clearly,
That's
even though,
nothing. That is a momentary practical thing where the best thing you can do is this. That's not me pronouncing and believing and being convinced that it's true.
well, what it illustrates though is that there are conditions, even on your view, where affirming the truth might not actually
No,
be the best outcome.
no, actually,
and
it's not
affirming
because
something
you're using the word affirming in a way
well,
that I
can I
don't.
finish?
No, you can't. The way you're using the word affirming,
Okay. Sorry, my mistake.
you're right.
Well, it's not really a good equivocation because in the example that he gave, you're being compelled to affirm an untruth in order to save your life. Whereas with Christianity, it's not really quite the same thing. You're not going to suddenly have a gun held to your head and be shot dead if you deny the truth of Christianity. So I wouldn't really say it's the same thing.
It was your mistake.
Yeah, it
The
is
way
your
you are
mistake.
using the word affirming, to say out loud that statement does not mean that I have accepted it internally. So if you were to ask the actual metaphor of someone gun to your head, accept that 2 plus 2 equals 5, and your brain state has to change, otherwise you die, like Christianity actually works, to actually hold the belief versus saying it out loud the way Christianity, at least most forms I've ever seen, don't work, where if you just say, I believe in Jesus and God out loud, that will work even if you don't. That would be the actual parallel metaphor. Yours was nonsense.
Yeah, I did a course in positive thinking, and I remember these positive affirmations, which were part of it. For example, I can climb Mount Everest. I can defeat any foe. I have a supreme power inside me that it can achieve anything. And I came to realize that these positive affirmations were effectively um, stating positions which I knew effectively not to be true. So yeah, affirming something is different from really believing and being convinced that it is true.
Yeah.
professing Christianity versus living Christianity, professing Christianity versus living, professing Christianity versus living Christianity are two different things, which even the Bible acknowledges. How dare you come up with a gun barrel scenario and suggest that at the point of a gun, at saying that 2 + 2 = 5 is the same thing as accepting and affirming that 2 + 2 = 5. That's a difference between professing and believing. It was just bullshit.
Just an analogy.
A terrible one.
It was just an analogy to kind of illustrate this notion that we're not always on the more secular utilitarian worldview. We're not always going to have affirming the truth in our best interest, because there may be conditions.
Well, accepting or at least affirming that 2 + 2 = 5 does not violate the consistency of a secular humanist worldview at all.
That
it's a practical necessity.
Telling or affirming or accepting a lie would
do you think
lead to better outcomes?
Zen, do you think
that also be
I muted him. Zen, do you think we're fucking too stupid to know that? Because what you called in to suggest, I don't know that I'm being engaged with charitably. Shut up. What you called in to suggest was not that on occasion people might lie and profess a belief to their benefit. You called in to suggest that even if it's not true, being a Christian helps you. So why are you now dishonestly trying to argue for an analogy that does not fit your original point?
Well, it tends to reason that people that believe or act as if the Christian God is real, even if that is false, tend to have better outcomes societally, even on your view.
It's like you're not listening to what I say. So I'm going to mute you, and now you're going to listen to what I say.
He's done that several times.
You called in to say that even if it's not true, people who live as Christian have better lives. And rather than get into the nitty-gritty on the data, other than pointing out that there are problems with those studies, what I pointed out was that it's one thing to profess a belief and another thing to actually hold a belief. If there's a benefit to merely professing a belief, and there is, that's fine, but that has nothing to do with someone actually holding the belief. We're here talking about whether or not Christianity is true and whether or not people actually believe it. If you had called in and said, hey, Matt, hey, Jimmy, I know that there are people who can pretend to be a Christian and get a better life out of it, I would have said, well, duh, we all know that. I knew that when I was a Christian. I knew that when the Bible told me. I knew that before the Bible told me. Just like there are people who can pretend to be Christians and get elected to office because you are advocating for people doing something, whether it's true or not, which sets you and everybody you've convinced up to be lied to by the people who profess Christianity in order to get political power. I'm the one that's addressing the actual facts of reality. I'm the one who understands that there are benefits to pretending and that there are benefits to those who actually believe. Why on earth are you coming up with an analogy about saying there might be a circumstance where somebody's got a gun to your head where it would be in your best interest to do so? Of course there is. This ain't my first fucking rodeo.
Okay. So basically, he's calling in to claim something which Matt and Jimmy probably already accept as the case. May well be the case. The benefits of belief, or the benefits of professing belief, the benefits of being a Christian, and that could be accepted. And it's not really important because, of course, what Matt's interested in is why people believe. And are there any good reasons for believing that a God exists or that Christianity is true? Okay, let's just go to the end of the call and see how it ends. It is unpleasant, but let's go to it.
A better life out of it. I would have said, well, duh, we all know that. I knew that when I was a Christian. I knew that when the Bible told me. I knew that before the Bible told me. Just like there are people who can pretend to be Christians and get elected to office because you are advocating for. I'm the one that's addressing the actual facts of reality. I'm the one who understands that there are benefits to pretending and that there are benefits to those who actually believe. Why on earth are you coming up with an analogy about saying there might be a circumstance where somebody's got a gun to your head where it would be in your best interest to do so. Of course there is. This ain't my first fucking rodeo. I care about whether or not it's true. But if you're not going to argue for the actual belief, but just say, you know, there might be a situation where it's in your best interest to say Jesus is Lord, you're right. If somebody's got a gun to my head, I'm going to say Jesus is Lord. I'm going to go back to all the shit that I knew when I used to believe this stuff for decades when I was studying to be a minister. I'm going to go back to all of that, and I'm going to preach like nobody's ever heard anybody preach before. Because now the situation is, do this or you're dead.
Okay, yeah, so Jimmy is just about to put a very good question to the caller. Let's listen to it.
You keep talking, bringing back this things to outcomes. I assume this means that you have familiarized yourself with more data than just like, say, the American-directed Mayo Clinic ones. That I'm kidding. I think that's exactly what you familiarize yourself with. But let's assume you've familiarized yourself with more. Who has better outcomes? A Christian in a majority Muslim country or an atheist in a majority secular country?
Am I unmuted?
Yep. Can you answer that question?
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Well, I think the dialectic that I was generally
No. This is not answering the question. I asked a direct question. Did you hear it? Do you need me to repeat it? I can repeat it.
Am I going to
He was going into bullshit mode.
be able to engage with the...
You can answer the...
We hear this so many times. This is a sign that the call is nearly over. Am I going to be allowed to talk? Are you going to put me on mute again? Can I actually answer the question?
Question that
Probably
is
not.
You're engaging.
Probably not if you're not going to answer the fucking questions. And when we do give you space, you argue dishonestly, forcing us to correct. So you can sit there and smugly think you've done something. Right now, you are the shittiest representative for Jesus Christ that I've spoken to this week.
So far,
and that's saying something. Will you answer Jimmy's question?
Do you need it repeated? That's fine if you do.
Yeah, go ahead and repeat it, please.
Who has a better outcome in similar studies to the ones that you were referring to? Who has a better outcome? A Christian in a majority Muslim country, or I'll broadly just say a majority non-Christian country, but let's go Muslim, just make it simple. Who has better outcomes? A Christian
I don't know.
In a majority Muslim country, or a secular person, an atheist in a secular country?
Yeah, I'll just grant that I don't know the answer to that question.
Great, good. So I'm going to, no, I'm going to inform you because the answer is important. It's the atheist in the secular place. It isn't actually about that Christian.
Do you think he really doesn't know? Do you think that he really couldn't have used his grey matter and some reasoning skills to work out the answer? It's very convenient that he doesn't know.
Christians specifically have better outcomes than atheists just because you can find a higher number of Christians than atheists because you are polling in places. Matt actually touched on this briefly when he was responding, where that's going to be, it is about the culture you are within. So yes, atheists, when subjected, even in a country with a secular government, to what we have here, Christian nationalism, have worse outcomes, generally, broadly speaking, to the country. However, when you also look at the happiness index of specific states,
Jimmy,
you can find
I need to
the
pause for a
opposite.
second.
Go ahead.
Jimmy, Zen, are you a friend of the Andrew that I just recently debated?
Yeah, I hope you and your husband have a wonderful night.
I wasn't going to, the funny thing is I wasn't going to get rid of Zen.
Okay, well, there we go. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the debate that Matt did with Andrew, where he walked out and Andrew called out to him, I don't know, give my regards to your husband, referring to Arden, of course. And yep, so yeah, so obviously Zen, strange that he should call himself Zen when, he's a Christian. But that was a cheap parting shot anyway. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was quite an interesting call in a way. This thing about the pragmatism of Christianity and the difference between affirming that something is true and really believing that it's true. So there we are. Let me know what your comments are. Bye for now.